What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Ever Adaptive Podcast. I am your host, Beckie Flowers, along with my beautiful co-host over here,
Sarah Budson. Hello, everyone.
Good morning. We are up and early recording episode 12 for you. So this episode we are super excited about. We are going to talk all about blood work today. And
I can't wait to nerd out on this.
Seriously. This is Sarah's specialty. So if you guys have missed previous episodes, go back and listen. But she was working with Transcend, which is it's the top HRT clinic.
Yeah, it's like one of the top HRT clinics in the nation. There's so many of them. But that's just who I loved my time with them, and it taught me so much. And I never knew that it would be something that turned into like such a passion for me, because you're just able to help people in a completely different way on a way deeper level, because you're literally fixing things from the inside out. So
yeah, that's why it's so freaking cool, because we can diet, we can train, we can do everything, but literally if your body isn't using the foods that you are eating to do what we want it to do, like that's where we have to start. So kind of to kick us off, let's start there. Why would you want to do blood work? Like where do you even start? What's the point of it?
Yeah. So blood work gives us a really good look at obviously what's going on internally. You can only do so many external factors, where a lot of it roots inward, right? Our hormones are tied to quite literally everything. Your mood, your sleep, your cognitive function, your energy, your muscle mass, your metabolism. So many different things tie into our hormone levels and where they're at. And the biggest issue that I always ran into, and I would probably have 4 to 5 conversations daily with my patients of, I went to my PCP, my general practitioner, or an endocrinologist, or my gynecologist, or my urologist, and they didn't do anything for me, or they ran the most basic of the most basic labs, and they just said everything's normal. And but I don't feel normal. And that's where the miscommunication is. And it leads back to these physicians and these providers are taught on such an old school way of they're treating to keep you a patient. They don't want to fix you and actually make you feel better. But also with my background, I used to be a medical biller too. So I know all of the crooked, just like loops that you have to jump through to get things approved by insurance to pay for it.
Yes.
So
can I pause you right there?
Yeah.
Because I kind of want you to touch on, because so many people will go to their PCP because it will go through insurance, but dive into
Not the best way.
Exactly why you actually are probably going to save more money if you just pay for the blood work, where you're getting the full panel of where they're testing everything.
How much time did we have for this episode?
We have all morning. So
oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to go on a tangent here. And working in medical billing previously, and I used to work for a general practitioner, and I specifically remember when I would bill for blood work, you have to use certain diagnosis codes for them to be payable by, let's be realistic, someone who's probably been sitting behind a desk for 40 years, who's probably overweight, has zero idea what anything having to do with health, internal health, wellness, anything like that actually means. And you're trying to have them decide like whether or not we're going to pay for this or not. So like, does this diagnosis code, I mean, is it, does it give us enough reason for us to say like yes or no for us to pay for it? You quite literally can't get blood work paid for insurance if you're using the diagnosis fatigue. That is a very real thing. That is a very, very real thing. I know that firsthand, where you are so fatigued to the point where, like, if all of your hormones are suppressed and your thyroid's fucked, like, you're tired.
Yeah.
And there are internal issues of things that could be suppressed or suboptimal, that these need to be addressed and looked at, and even just seeing like where they're at. Like, that's what blood work is, right? Is we're just seeing where things are at. Like, where are we at internally? Because there's so many factors of things that can suppress our hormones, environmental factors, what we eat, our sleep, our stress. So many different things can downregulate all of these levels, and they
Yeah.
tie into everything. They're so fucking important. And so having to jump through the hoop of seeing if insurance will cover it, your primary care doctor will be like, oh, I want a whole, hormone workup. They'll do like a CBC, a complete blood count, a metabolic panel, a lipid profile, and then like maybe your TSH. And your TSH in regards to thyroid tells us very, very, very minimal. Like, the thyroid is so complex. And there's so many different levels. And I'll get into what levels, we should be requesting to look into, especially as athletes. But your TSH, it's your thyroid stimulating hormone. It's really just showing us like how well your thyroid's actually secreting hormones. It doesn't show us our T4 levels, which is your inactive thyroid hormone, T3 levels, active metabolism, energy, reverse T3, anything like that, that actually shows us like, okay, where's our thyroid as far as functioning in our energy, in our metabolism, in it controls so many different things, our body temperature, our hair, our nails, so many different things. And so, and like, these physicians are just so ignorant to it. It's crazy to me,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to other hormones, testosterone. Time and time again, I work with so many men where their testosterone range, and oh my gosh, we're gonna be here forever today.
I know. We're gonna have to like dial it in, but no, go off on testosterone because that's for men
Testosterone
and
range.
women.
Okay, so like, if you're looking at a lab test and they give you these like normal ranges, right? If you should fit, and yeah, you should fit within these normal ranges if you're fucking breathing. Okay.
Yeah.
That has absolutely nothing to do with your age, your lifestyle, your goals, how you're feeling. There's an optimal range of where we need to be at in regards to looking, feeling, performing our best.
Well, and these normal ranges are coming from the average American. Look at the average American. How are we living? We are very sedentary. Most of us don't work out. Most of us don't eat well. We're eating the basic average American diet. Like, normal, we don't want to be normal. You're not going to
Mhm.
feel good normal.
Mm-mm.
9 times out of 10, the people in your office right now feel like shit. And that's what normal is being called. So,
Yes.
duh,
Yeah.
you drive me
And
crazy.
like I said, it's like, I would have so many men come to me and they're like, oh, well, they said my test levels were normal. And I'm like, well, what do they come back at? And it's like, oh, like 360. And it's like, dude, like, for an optimal male, like, on a lab range, it's like right now, and it's decreasing every year, the top end of it, FYI. Like, it's crazy. It's
Yep.
absolute insanity. It's like 264 to like 9 something, where optimal, like, we're looking for 900 or better. Like, I wanted my men sitting, and this is just on like an optimized TRT program, like between 900 and like 1300 is where, libido's going to be great, mood's going to be great, energy's going to be great, your body's firing, you're able to build muscle and recover. Like, there's just so many different things that play into testosterone levels, and you get these guys, especially these younger guys, which is crazy. These younger guys where it could just be, a hypogonadism kind of thing, or they're fucking around with SARMs, suppressing their shit because they have zero idea what they're doing, which that's a whole nother
That's a
tangent.
whole nother topic. But
I
it's
can't even
also
tell
our
you how many.
diet. Like our
Yeah.
diet is shit. Like
Yeah.
our whole lifestyle. It's not optimal.
Everything plays into your hormones.
Mhm.
And there are natural ways that you can keep them higher if you're not screwing yourself over to begin with, but there's you can only also go so far without supplementation too. But before even considering any supplementation, I know I got way off of your initial question here.
No, no, this is good.
Before you should even consider any supplementation, where's your sleep at? Where's your diet at? Are you exercising? Are you getting sunlight? Are you taking care of your body in the way that you should so that you can feel good on all of these different levels? And then, okay, let's see where we're at. And if there's something that needs addressing, if there's something that's regulated or suppressed, all right, how can we fix it then? How can we optimize it then?
Yeah.
And so going to your primary care physician, they're not going to look at in-depth levels that give you the whole picture. It's going to be this very scaled version of what insurance will pay for. And they probably won't even call you with your test results. They'll probably just, if you call and ask, they'll probably be like, oh, everything was normal. And
Yeah.
then you're left with what? With what?
You don't even know what you were at
Yeah. And
to
it's
think
like
you're eating better.
we would get these people that are like, oh, I got a full lab panel done. It's like, okay, email me what your primary sent you, what they pulled. And it's like, okay, we test for like 15 levels on top of this.
Yeah.
So this is irrelevant to me because it doesn't tell me anything having to do with your hormones.
And
Uh,
what's just the before we go on, what's like the average price if you were just going to go through someone privately to just get your
yeah.
blood work?
So there's a lot of different options. I can tell you that a lot of these hormone clinics will have contracts with like LabCorp Quest, things like that for specific lab panels at a way better price than you would get if you were to either A, pay out of pocket, or B, try running it through insurance. And then guess what? They don't cover it because they're like, well, why do you need to know these levels? And especially when you go through insurance in your primary, it's like you can ask for all of these levels and they might be able to pull a couple. And if something then is out of range, then they can be like, okay, now we have grounds to test further. But you have to jump through fucking hoops to get there. And it's like, if I can go to this independent place that has their own lab panel set up with everything that I need to know, why wouldn't you? I mean, you can go through, any of these hormone clinics. You can even go to like a synergistic. There's so many different just independent labs that you can literally go and just go out of pocket. And they're so much more affordable than, I mean, our lab panel through Transcend, like if it was an out of pocket, easily a $2,000 test. Where, I mean, I'm not going to go into specifics, what different labs or hormone clinics are charging, but I can tell you it's a huge fraction of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just take the time and invest in yourself. That's really what it comes down to. It's like, you can skip out and try going the easier route, but you're going to be jumping through more hoops. You're still going to feel like shit. Invest in yourself. Like, this is your health.
Yeah.
And people don't take that as seriously as they really should. It comes to coaching with someone too, right? It's like, oh, well, that's a lot of money for coaching monthly. And it's like, dude, you're out every fucking weekend drinking and partying. Like, get your fucking priorities together,
Yep.
I have no sympathy for people like that.
I have zero sympathy for anyone right now.
Right. It's
That's all
heightened
turned
right now
out.
for you.
Right. But just like for example, for me, when I get my blood work done and it's like $200 every single time. So just so you guys have a good idea, if you've never done blood work through an independent place, like you are paying a couple $100 when you are getting the whole panel, you're able to see the screenshot of what is going on in your body on that day. And then you can use that to either, like Sarah said, supplement, dive into supplements, or first just try to get your lifestyle together. And if you are working with a coach, it lets them see, okay, this is what we can really work on and gives us a game plan for how we can move forward. Because
Mhm.
when you don't actually look and see what's going on internally, you basically are like shooting in the dark. It's like the
Yeah,
people and
ignorance is not bliss at all.
exactly. I used to read all of these books and I used to be the girl that would like try to figure it out on my own when I just could have gone to get my blood work done and see what my
Mhm.
actual levels are.
Yeah. Yeah, and now we're coming into this whole generation of women who, I mean, it's my generation, right? We were accustomed to, oh, you're 15, 16 years old, time to go on birth control. And it's like, dude, that
Yeah.
is the worst thing. And I'm very biased here because I've seen the other side of it, and I've helped hundreds of women who their hormones are just in the gutter
Oh, I'm living it right
because
now.
what was that?
I'm living it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
It
just like everything's so downregulated and suppressed, and yeah, no wonder you feel like shit. No wonder your hair's falling out. No wonder you're tired all the time. No wonder you have no libido. No wonder you can't get pregnant. Like
mhm.
there's so many different things, and it's just like no wonder you're depressed. No wonder you have anxiety. Like all of this plays into it. No wonder your sleep is shit. Like I could
But
go on.
then we can like we're gonna have to like rein this in because we can go off on this. But like, okay, then you know what? You feel depressed. Here's another pill. You feeling anxious?
Oh
Here, you
yeah.
have anxiety. No, why don't we just start from the inside out, fix the freaking shit that we have going on inside, and you
Because
won't
they
feel
want you to be a
depressed.
customer.
That's exactly what it comes down to. So you to avoid
We're
this
gonna get
is
flagged on this one,
I
man.
know. That's all right. But for you to avoid this, like be your own advocate
Yes.
and stand up for yourself. Guys, like, come on, fucking adults, stand up for yourself. Quit going through like just the head down, eyes down, do what they say. That's all I think. And
Question.
question it. That's what I was
Question
looking
it.
for.
You know, it's like if you feel like shit and they're like, well, we can't do anything for you. And it's like, you're full of shit. You're full of shit. There is something that can be done. Like, okay, now what are my alternative routes here?
Yeah. I
And there are certain primary care doctors, urologists, things like that, that are more so open to like a TRT, right? For males. 9 times out of 10, they don't know how to fucking do it correctly. Because if you can get, and I would always say, like, hey, if you can get your test covered by insurance, fantastic. It also is one of the most affordable hormones through a clinic, FYI. So, like, it's really inexpensive if you want it done correctly. But people who go through their primaries and there's no like guidelines of, well, they're going to start you off on a very low dose, and any exogenous testosterone is going to suppress your natural production.
Mhm.
With that, if you're not supplementing with enough to replace that suppression and then obviously optimize further, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're going to feel like even more shit. That also being said, these certain concentrations have certain half-lives. They'll only last in you for so long. If your primary is telling you, oh yeah, come get an injection of, half a cc once every 2 weeks, and it's like, dude, that's nothing. You're going to feel worse. You're going to feel worse. Half a cc, if it's a 200 milligram concentration per milliliter, that's 100 milligrams every 2 weeks. It's like, your typical like TRT can range, I mean, optimally anywhere you're going to be roughly around like 140 to 200 milligrams weekly. Generally split between 2 injections so that you're sustaining these levels rather than this peak and valley. And then you get into, okay, if you're at this peak, now your estrogen spiked, now you're dealing with all of these other hormonal issues where If you're nice and sustained throughout the week, also at that point, so yeah, you're going to feel way better. You're not going to be so up and down. But then when these physicians are getting follow-up blood work done, they're giving no guidelines in, okay, when was your last injection in correlation to when we get your blood work done, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to get your blood work done the fucking day after you did your injection, no shit, your levels are going to be through the roof.
When is the best time to do that?
Typically about 4 days after your most recent injection
Okay.
is usually what we would go for. And that'll give us kind of a baseline of, and that's with like a sip and it concentrate. So when that way we could kind of see where things are at on average rather than we're super high or we're super low and it's time for the next injection.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of see where true test levels are. And you want to get your total and your free testosterone checked as well. There's a huge difference. Total testosterone is going to be everything in your body. Free testosterone is what's readily available in your body to be used. So that being said, your total can be through the roof, but if your body isn't able to put it to use with that free testosterone and you have all this unbound testosterone through your body, it's of no use. And so getting SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin is a really good idea to get checked as well. So you can see what is actually, not bound in the body and is kind of essentially just being wasted. Your estrogen, you always want to see where estrogen's at. This is male and female.
Yeah.
Obviously females, we have more sex hormones, so we're a little bit more complicated, but I'm kind of speaking male specific here. There's so many different things that you can get into with all of that. And regardless, you want to get the full picture. DHEA is another very important one. DHEA it's a precursor to our sex hormones. Also touches on, it's got like hundreds of different benefits, mood, decision-making, stress response. It's huge for like your adrenal function. So that will also, like, if your DHEA is optimized, it's going to go, it'll be more geared towards your like free test, getting your free test higher too. So there's a lot of different ways that, even men, it's like, well, maybe I don't want to go on a testosterone, an exogenous testosterone replacement. There's different options too, more natural options where you can boost testosterone naturally with something like enclomiphene, which we're getting super sciencey here. FSH and LH, body's like natural ability to produce testosterone. And so if you're boosting FSH, LH, that's basically the signaling of your body to produce more testosterone on its own. DHEA, so like if you supplement with DHEA, that can boost free testosterone, but there's also a lot of like natural supplements that can help with that too. You're not going to get this huge jump like you are obviously with like an actual TRT, like an injectable. There's creams too. Like there's so many different options that you can go when it comes to getting testosterone optimized. And it's really, really boils down to where are you at? What's your baseline picture at? What's your lifestyle? What are your goals? And then how do you want to proceed?
Yeah.
So
can you dive into, and I want to get into a little bit of why it's so important, especially for athletes to do this, but can you dive into more female? Because I know personally, like my testosterone was super, super low. And I went to my doctor right after I had my third baby and was like, there is something wrong. I like libido was non-existent for years, so tired. And they were like, oh no, you're fine. You're normal. So then I got into bodybuilding and did my first blood work panel that I've never done before. And my test was like a 6. And it like, that's like nothing. So, and my estrogen, progesterone, like all of that was all in the tank. So dive into that. Like, where should females kind of be? And taking the stigma away from, we do have testosterone, ladies. Like we do need testosterone. And I know that, and just like men need estrogen, like,
right.
have it.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. Okay. So, it's very interesting outside right now. It looks like it's going to tornado. Anyway.
Oh, great.
The sky's nice and yellow. Anyway, So yeah, love this. I can also speak firsthand to her as well, because after my first show, because I did my first show completely natural,
Mhm.
and then after is when I got my first lab panel done, and same thing. Everything was in the gutter. I'd also been on birth control for 14 years at that point. That's where it all stems from, right?
Yep.
You know, it's like I've had a healthy lifestyle, but we're just accustomed to go on birth control. It'll help regulate your periods and, help with acne. And it's like,
Or
dude,
you
you're
have a
doing,
baby, ladies, put in that IUD, put in that
yep.
IUD. You don't want to come
Yeah.
back.
And it's like, God, and just going into this really quickly, and I won't dive too deep into it. It's like, I've tried so many different methods of birth control, and they all made me feel fucking crazy.
Yes.
Like, I was a mess,
Yep.
a mess. And because it's altering your hormones, people. Like, you're you are just a mental case all the
You are.
time because you're not where you should be. And okay, that aside, so our sex hormones are so important, especially when it comes to body composition goals. But really, if you're trying
Yeah.
to get pregnant, your hormones need to be in a correct place. You need to be taking care of your body. But so, females, yes, testosterone is so fucking important. So important. When I came out of my show and I got my first blood work done, same thing. My test was in the fucking gutter. My total test, I think I was at a 9, and I think my free test was at like a 0.4 or something like that. In reference to, and it's going to vary person to person as well, right? Especially for females, you can get into a lot of scary side effects, virilization, things like that, when it comes to if our test is too high, which obviously we don't want. But female range, I mean, you're really looking anywhere between, like, total test, you want to be between like 50, and I would even have some women that were up to like 200 and like in a good spot. Free test, you want to be between like a 3 and a 5 is going to be more on the optimal side of things. So yeah, your total test being at a 6, that's nothing. Sorry. I just started.
Just let me know if you blow away.
Yeah. And free test, it's like, if that's in the gutter, I mean, I'll speak for my symptoms, and I see this across the board with females all the time. It's like you feel like a zombie. A
Yes.
zombie. Like you said, zero libido, energy is crashed, your recovery from workouts, shit, your difficulty, having difficulty building muscle or losing body fat, anxiety. I had the worst anxiety ever when my test was super low. And going on women, be very careful with this. A lot of places will we'll start women off on too high of a dose of test. You always want to start low and titrate up, see where your happy medium is, because everyone's going to be different for tolerance, for absorption, everything like that. But going on a TRT quite literally changed my life. I mean, my anxiety completely disappeared. Libido was back where it should have been. Energy was super optimized. My body composition changed drastically. There's so many different things that played into it. My sleep got better. Just so many different areas that our test plays into. And it's very important. And I mean, some women don't even know that we have tests in our bodies,
Yeah. Yeah. What
So
about
yeah, it's super important.
what about estrogen and um progesterone?
Yeah. So estrogen, progesterone, so these hormones will fluctuate a lot throughout our menstrual cycle because they're all
Mhm.
going to be at different levels. What I would see a lot of, um, estrogen dominance, progesterone being suppressed, both estrogen and progesterone being suppressed. There's a lot of different, ways that it can look for women.
Mhm.
And a lot of it, if you're on a birth control, it's suppressing your hormones. That's what it does. That's so they make it so that you can't get pregnant. Like, that's what it's
Yeah.
doing.
You're probably going to
And
experience depression and
yeah, your moods are going to be,
yeah.
not not factual, but it's very likely that moods will be everywhere. Us as women, so if there's like an estrogen dominance, we will hold body fat in certain areas too, that like lower abdomen, thigh, lower body fat it's a lot of the time, women that are, and we're looking for a ratio between the two, a healthy ratio between the
Yeah.
two. It's not going to be black and white for everyone. And like I said, everything fluctuates throughout the month with your menstrual cycle. So you're kind of looking for this certain ratio of estrogen to progesterone. And if progesterone's super low, you can have irregular periods. Like there's so many different things that can play into it, painful periods, things like that. So just go get everything looked at, because getting the full picture is so beneficial to see where things are at. And okay, now what are we going to do moving forward to get me where I want to be mentally, physically, for my goals? So
Yeah. And the nice thing about going through private blood work companies is most of the time they have doctors, actually all the time, they have doctors that they partner with that
yep.
will dive into it with you and help you walk through this. So it's not like you're walking through it alone.
Yeah.
But on that note, I did have somebody ask what, like, when you're looking for a coach, especially athletes, and this is more bodybuilding, and you're doing your blood work, because we do our blood work all the time, what are you looking for in someone that is going to help you dissect this and kind of navigate it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if your coach, if you're like competing, especially, and your coach is not asking for blood work, run.
If
Fucking
you're
run.
competing, yes. Yes.
Run. Blood work is so important, especially when competing, because you need to see where things are at, especially if you have like PEDs coming into play. Dude,
Oh gosh.
that's a whole other
That's a
thing.
whole nother thing. If you're
Yeah.
not getting your blood work done and then you're adding that stuff in, oh gosh, guys.
Oh my God. I can't. I
Get it
can't.
done.
But just, yeah. Okay. So make sure that your coaches are asking for blood work. If they're not, get a different coach and look for someone who is knowledgeable, but ask people that have worked with them in the past. Ask their knowledge about it. If ask, like, if I get a full hormone panel, like, do you know what we're looking for, things like that. Same thing, be your own advocate, just like you would be at your primary care doctor. Don't just blindly go into this. Yes, with your coach, you should trust them, but also make sure that you're doing your due diligence on making sure that they actually know their shit.
And so many coaches now in the industry have their own YouTube's podcasts. Like you can do your research where they
Mm,
quite literally are putting out how they are doing
yeah.
their training and protocols with their athletes. Listen to it. Be your own
Yeah.
advocate that way too. So reach out to
Yep.
athletes and do your own homework.
Yep. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I do want to touch on like a little bit on the PED usage. I'm not gonna dive super deep into this. There is one girl that I absolutely love. She's brilliant when it comes to PEDs. Her name's Cory, I think it's Hageman. Cory_fit on Instagram. She is constantly putting out information, reels on PED usage, on blood work, on everything. I've learned so much from her, even, further than what I know, just with PED usage and kind of like what you're looking for. But she's a great resource for women when it comes to anything like that too. So she's very beneficial to follow. I know that in our previous episode, we kind of touched on like A1C, diabetic markers, blood
Yeah,
sugar, things like that. And I do want to just dive into that a little bit further,
I do too.
because I think that this is something that a lot of people just didn't really actually know was possible. There's so many different things that can affect our blood sugar. And if you're at like a standstill, which I was, my diet was in check, my nutrition, my cardio, My training was all in check, but I was so high stress. My cortisol was through the roof. And so starting to monitor your blood sugar, take your fasted blood glucose every morning and see where you're at, and see, like if you're on a higher end of the range, which like we should be, like fasting blood glucose, you want to be 80 or lower. Like realistically, you don't want to be in the high 80s. It's not a good place to be, because that is slowly going to accumulate to your A1C increasing. A1C, like I mentioned last time. So hemoglobin A1C diabetic marker, it's a 3-month span. It's an average of where your glucose is sitting. So it gives you a better look at where that is. There's so many different things that can play into your blood sugar. It's not just the foods that you consume. It's not just hereditary. Yes, those can be part of it, but your sleep, your stress, your hydration, all of these play into where all of these adrenal functions are at. And they all, you can accumulate into these levels being up and creating a resistance where your body's not absorbing that food, and it's not putting that glycogen to use to fuel your workouts, to recover. All of these different things play into it. So getting your glucose, just monitoring it, seeing where it's at, it's a good idea, especially as athletes, because we want to make sure that we're sensitive to that insulin, so that we're putting to use the food that we're eating. And that's obviously it can be a huge hurdle. It was for me. Like I had mentioned, it's like, I could not for the life of me, we adjusted so many different things when I was working with my last coach, and nothing was working. And so it got to the point where, I had to figure out a different way to manage my stress, but I also did go on semaglutide as well. And that's something that I'll touch on really briefly. And I do think that a lot of people now, because it's like it thing, it can be misused for sure. A lot of people don't know how you should use it, but I know that my case was, and it's like, these people will be like, oh, I want to lose 5-10 pounds. Like, you probably don't need something like that. It's an obesity drug, but also it helps with bringing down your A1C to get that sensitivity back, so that things are moving in the right direction. I got blood work done right when I started semaglutide in late February, early March. And at that point, I had still been in the pre-diabetic range for over a year at this point. And so my A1C was at a 5.7. I got my blood work done in June or July, and my A1C was at a 5.1. It had dropped. That's the lowest my A1C has ever been, which is, so impressive.
What's like a normal, where do we want to be with A1C? Because I don't know anything.
So A1C, so your normal range, top end of that's 5.6. So I was just within that pre-diabetic range. Obviously, the further away from it, the better. But you also don't want to be going hypo all the time. Too. So low 5s is really a good place to be, even high 4s. But you want to be kind of in that happy medium range, because obviously the higher that you get, the closer you are to a pre-diabetic or a diabetic state, which is just no bueno. So,
and that, like you said, this is so important to know as competitors and just lifestyle athletes, because we are training, we are eating for our goals, but if you're not partitioning those nutrients, like, you're not getting anywhere. So I have probably a dumb question, but I literally am nerding out on this, and I don't know anything about this. If you guys don't know, if you didn't listen to the second episode, my dad was diabetic my whole life. He was type 2, so it definitely was in his control, but he ended up passing away of things that have developed because of diabetes. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart, but I never really understood or saw any reason to look at your blood glucose unless you were told by a doctor that you are pre-diabetic or diabetic. So now, like, as competitors and what we do, is this something that it would be beneficial to check your blood glucose daily in prep and in off season, or like how? Okay.
Yeah. Especially especially in an off season, because you're generally pushing more food, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're pushing more food, calories are going to be higher, and you want to make sure that it's quality food that you're eating, not trash. And if you're having, digestion issues or anything like that, that's always something to watch. But you want to make sure that things are, like you said, those nutrients are being partitioned into the right areas and actually being put to use. Otherwise, you're going to be spinning your wheels. You could
Yeah.
be gaining more body fat than muscle. And you want to make sure that there is that sensitivity for absorption. So, especially in an off season, but yeah, I mean, really all year round, it's not going to hurt. It's not like it's literally a tiny little prick of your finger. Or they have the ones that, I mean, I haven't done anything like that one where you like stick it onto your arm or whatever, and they just
Oh, I've seen
automatically,
those.
but those are so intriguing to me because you can monitor all throughout the day and you can see how your body is responding to every meal. And I want to do it
Yes.
so bad just because I'm such a nerd about it.
Yes. No. And that kind of like brings up a good point too, because you are like, it can change throughout the day, but also like taking the average of the week or however long, I don't know how long you would do it, but if it spikes for one day, like don't lose your shit and be like, oh my gosh, I'm, I don't even know.
Yeah. No,
Like just take the
your
average.
glucose, yeah, it fluctuates hundreds of times throughout the day because it's going to be based off of whether you're fasting, whether you're not,
Yeah.
how your sleep is, how your stress is, everything like that. So it's it's not a bad idea to just pay attention to.
Yeah. What are some things before we dive into cortisol and PEDs? What are some things with blood sugar, but then also going back to like sex hormones that you can just do like naturally, like lifestyle things? Like obviously we're going into cortisol, so this is going to play into that too, but like working on stress management, getting
Mhm.
good sleep,
Yeah. Just
all
all
of
of
these basics.
your basic boxes that you should be checking as a fucking human being. Like you don't need a gold
But so
star
many
for these
people
things.
don't. So many
You
people
don't need a
don't.
gold star for these things. Like these are things that you should just be doing because you exist and you want to feel better. And you
You know,
want
oh,
what?
sorry. I'm like, I have this freaking post-it note up here, and I like live by this lately. We don't applaud fish for swimming. We
Mm,
don't applaud you for we don't applaud you for going to bed without your phone in your fucking face. Like, we don't applaud fish for swimming. So think of that. Like, I want you to think of that going throughout your day of, is this something that I should be doing normally? Should you be getting good sleep? Should you be working on your stress management and not losing your shit all the time? Should you be going outside and getting sunlight? Should you be drinking your water? Like, come on, guys.
yeah.
Go off. Go on. Sorry.
You go up. No, it's just checking those boxes of just making sure that your health it's a priority. Like it
Yeah.
should be. You have to live with yourself for the rest of your fucking life. Like your body is your vessel to live through life. Why would you treat it like it's a fucking garbage disposal? I
Yeah.
don't understand it. Like it's just that short-term gratification versus the long term, right? And what feels good in the moment versus what's going to benefit you in the future.
Yeah.
And all of these things just play right into it. Make sure your sleep's in a good spot. Make sure your mental's in a good spot and you're managing your stress. If you need to, go to fucking therapy. Like it's not something that it is so much more normalized now than it was even I would say a year, 2 years ago. It's just take care of yourself. Eat whole foods. Stop with the processed shit because it's convenient. Take
And
the
even the
fucking
like healthy processed shit, guys, like the protein
yeah.
bars and all of that, like that's still processed. So start if
Just
it comes
take
from
the
the
fucking
ground.
time out of your day to actually give a shit, prep your meals, and just fuel your body so that you feel good.
Yeah.
It's like you you want to be preventing rather than treating.
Yeah.
You know, why would you want to have to come to that point where you're like, fuck, I needed that wake up call because now I have to fix it. No, prevent it out of the gate. It
Yeah.
can start at any point. It doesn't need to be too late. It doesn't need to be too early. It can literally start at any point. You can start making these small sustainable changes to, they're just going to keep that momentum into bettering yourself, bettering your health, bettering your internals. And that's what it all boils down to.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. All right. You want to dive into cortisol at all, or you want to dive into
Cortisol
PDs?
kind of goes right with like the blood sugar, really, because it's just kind of another, like DHEA is just like an adrenal function. So
Yeah.
if your cortisol is up, it's more than likely that, glucose will be on the higher end of things. It's just another kind of, there's certain markers where if you're pulling this full lab panel and you can be like, oh, this is higher than it should be, and this is higher than it should be, then it's like, okay, I have a better picture of probably what's going on internally. Because it's not black and white when it comes to hormones per person. Everyone is so individualized. And so don't think that too. It's not a black and white, a yes or no. And especially when it comes to optimization and treatment, it's not going to be instantaneous. It's going to take a while. There are small internal changes that will be happening, and it depends on what rate. It's going to be different for everyone,
Yeah.
When I was helping patients, and I helped patients all throughout the process. So like when I did it, it's like I would read their blood work over on the phone with them, explain line by line what everything meant, how it correlated, where they were at, and where optimal was. And so I went through all of that and I heard all of their pain points. And it's like, okay, well, if this is your goal, this is where we're looking for this to be. But I completely forgot my tangent here. I forgot where we were at.
Cortisol.
Yeah, just it's not going to be black and white. And I would have these patients where, okay, they would start a treatment and it's like, it's not going to be instantaneous. You're not going to notice something within a week. It's
Yeah.
sometimes I would have these women, it's like finally 3 months in, and they'd be messaging me and they'd be like, oh my gosh, like I feel like a whole new human. And it's like, just stick with it. Like, let your body heal itself from all of the damage that's been done to it for years and years and years and years and years. It's just like a fat loss thing. It's like you can't undo years of bad habits in a week, 2 weeks. Like,
Yeah. Even
give
3 months,
yourself
6 months.
time.
Like,
Yeah, give
yeah.
yourself time to heal and just get where you need to be on things.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
um, PEDs, I mean, I would just say, gosh, be careful. You can fuck yourself up, male or female, young or old.
Females
Do your
don't have as big of rebound rate as males. Like, I think males can push
get
themselves a
away
little
with
bit more.
more.
Yes,
Get
that's what
away
I
with
mean.
more.
Yes. Yeah. Females can't get away with as much as males can. So
Yeah.
definitely
We have to be very careful with dosages. Also, make sure whatever you're dealing with is real.
that.
There is a rapidly increasing rate of fake shit, of women who think that they're getting Anavar and it's D-ball. Like it's make sure that if you're doing anything underground, that it's a trusted source. There's testing kits that you can order online.
Okay.
Just make sure that your source is reliable if it's not an actual like pharmaceutical grade prescribed medication.
Yeah. Yeah. And just be,
And look out for those. Always start low, always start
yes.
small. You can always titrate up, but you can't undo, certain side effects. And those things can stay with you for a very, very, very long time.
And if you are running PEDs, obviously your coach needs to know about it and should
Mhm.
be helping you with that. But also be very open with them with, I mean,
Yes.
female virilization,
Yes.
anything. There is no
Transparency is
TMI.
key.
There is no TMI.
Transparency is It's key. Because everyone's going to be different. Some people are hyper responders. Some people are very much the opposite, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You can go a long way with a little, but also don't just throw it at your body because you're like, oh, well, all these, you know, women or men are on gear and I want to be on gear. It's like
Are you
risk
checking your
versus
box?
reward.
Are you even
Check your,
checking your box?
yep, check your basic boxes first and then see where you're at and see
Yeah.
if, you know, have the conversation with your coach, have the conversation with the people in the industry that, you know, ask questions, you know, do
Yeah.
your research and make sure it's the right choice for you.
And I think also put your biases and your stigmas that you have about it out of your head. That's my
Yeah.
biggest pet peeve. And I
Mhm.
had those too, where you hear steroids and you think of like the big guys walking around the gym that are like roided out and having rages. Like, do your research.
There's just so much misconception about it and just ignorance.
Yeah.
And it's like steroids aren't doing the work for you. You know, gear, you still have to have your diet in check. You still have to be pushing your training. All it's doing is making your recovery process better so that you can tolerate more and do more.
I feel like
Like,
you have to be even more in check than
yeah, because how many people there's people everywhere in the fitness industry that they claim that they're on gear and they look like dog shit.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's not a magic injection. Like you still have to do the work.
Mhm.
And it's not an easy way out. It's definitely not. If anything, it makes it more complicated.
When you are on PEDs though, or before you were to do a cycle or anything like that, what do you normally suggest your patients doing if they are doing that for blood work? So obviously blood work before you would start, but then
Yeah.
while they were in it, do you suggest blood work a certain amount of time
You
or?
can get blood work while on, you know, just to see where things are at. I would always suggest it just to kind of, you know, make sure that nothing is where it shouldn't be. You want to make sure blood pressure is in a good spot. You want to make sure your liver and your kidneys are in a good spot. That's
Yeah.
huge, 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 huge.
Yeah.
Make sure you're taking some sort of organ support supplement, liver support, glutathione, something. You have to be smart. There are bodybuilders dropping dead left and fucking right because they're not taking care of their heart. They're not taking care of their organs.
Well, that can
And
be something else too. Keep going.
just monitor your health. If you're going to make that decision to use PEDs, do it in the smartest way possible. Start small, monitor your health, make sure that you're checking your boxes. It always comes with a risk.
Yeah. Yeah,
Make sure that you're
exactly.
willing to accept that risk. Understand that you're going to feel fucking awesome when you're on.
Yes.
And you're probably going to feel like shit when you come off. There's peaks and valleys to it. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, when you do come off, how long do you suggest before getting your blood work redone? Because obviously, I mean, you're going to feel
Sooner
like
the
shit.
better.
Yeah, right
Sooner
away.
the better. I mean, like if I could get blood work done every freaking month, I would.
No,
Just
me
because I want to
too.
see where things are at. And I'm so curious. But the sooner the better so that you can see, okay, here's where I'm at and this is what I need to correct. You
Okay.
know, if you're not getting your labs done when you're on a cycle, get it done immediately after so that you can see, all right, this is what I need to correct. This is what I need to prioritize. I need to, you know, up this to make sure that my liver's, you know, recovering. Our
Mhm.
livers are very resilient. They heal themselves very easily, but make sure that you're taking the proper steps to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Just take care of yourself, like everything. Um, for our competitors, because we have lots of them that listen, and a lot of them right now that have reached out are in prep. So, how long do you suggest after coming off of prep and you're kind of in that reverse phase where you're in a health phase, right? Because we're
Yeah.
not going to go into growing right away.
Mhm.
When would you suggest getting your blood work done? So we kind of see like the real, because like if you get it done right away, obviously everything, especially if you're natural, it's in the fucking gutter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're
I would say anywhere from a couple weeks to like a month is a good point to, I mean, you're still going to be suppressed, but you still know, same thing like when you're coming off a cycle, you know what you need to work on.
yeah.
And what you need to prioritize as far as getting your thyroid in a good spot, getting your testosterone in a good spot, getting, all of these different things just addressed and back to a homeostasis point. So I always say sooner is better, just to see where things are at in correlation to what can be, optimized, fixed, and just go from there. Don't be afraid to get your blood work done often. It's not going to hurt.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can definitely go too often and then you're, losing too much. But if you are getting, I mean, I get my blood work done every 3 to 4 months because I want to know. I want to know where I'm at. And especially with like my mental state of just where I'm at in certain stages of life, how's that affecting it? You know, it's like I said, ignorance is not bliss. It's better to know where things are at to be in a preventative state rather than treating something. So
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
I
All
want
right.
to throw in the description that Cory girl's
Yes.
Instagram, because she's brilliant. She's a very, very good resource for anything having to do with hormones, PED usage, anything like that. She's awesome. She's someone that I love following because she's so educational. So I will get her information out as well. But I hope this helped. If you guys have any other questions, don't be afraid to ask. I am an open book when it comes to all of this. I have been in this industry for multiple years and I love it because I've been able to help change so many, literally thousands of people's lives with getting hormones where they need to be, male or female, young or old. Don't just think that this is an athlete thing. There are younger women, older women, postmenopausal women, young men, old men, athletes, non-athletes. Like there is something for everyone. And it was so rare for me to see someone's blood work where like everything was in a really good spot. So there's more than likely something that can be optimized. Don't ever think that you're wasting your money by getting blood work done, because even if it is, everything's in a good spot, now you have that peace of mind, and that's
Yeah.
worth more than anything.
Yeah. And honestly, you probably are going to be wasting more money if you are searching for something with trying to try this supplement blindly or this
Mhm.
book blindly, and just go and get it done, see where you're at,
Just
and
invest in yourself.
exactly. Exactly. This was so good. So thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to listen
Yeah.
back and take notes. But thanks so much for hanging out with us, guys. Hopefully you found some little gem in here. Let us know what you learned. Let us know if there's additional questions. Like, go ask Sarah, but then also if you want us to do a part 2 on this too, if there's enough questions, we will definitely do that as well. But thanks so much, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.